In the middle of the Pacific Ocean, there lies a tiny island, a forgotten battlefield where courage met destruction, and a handful of American soldiers stood against an entire empire. Today we uncover the unbelievable story of Wake Island, where defeat turned into eternal glory, and ordinary men became legends. It was early December 1941. The Pacific was calm, and the men stationed on Wake Island believed they were far from the chaos spreading across the world. The island was small, just a coral ring in the endless blue ocean, home to fewer than 500 American Marines and construction workers. They were building airfields and defenses, never imagining that their island would soon become one of the first battlegrounds of World War II. Their commander, Major James Devereaux, was a strict but respected Marine officer. He and his men had a few old coastal guns from World War I and a small group of F-4F Wildcat fighters. The days were long and quiet until everything changed on December 8, 1941. Just hours after the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor, the men on Wake Island received a chilling radio message. Pearl Harbor bombed. This is no drill. The war had found them. Moments later, 12 Japanese bombers appeared in the sky. The Marines barely had time to react before the first explosions tore through the island. The Japanese destroyed all but a few aircraft in minutes. The airstrip burned, the communications tower was gone, and dozens of men lay dead. Yet the survivors didn't lose hope. They rebuilt what they could, knowing that the next time, it wouldn't just be bombers, it would be an invasion. On December 11, 1941, the invasion came. 3 Japanese cruisers, 6 destroyers, and 2 troop transports appeared on the horizon. Against them stood only a few hundred Marines, armed with outdated guns and limited ammunition. Major Devereaux ordered his men to hold fire until the enemy came close. The Japanese ships began shelling the beaches, thinking it would be an easy victory. But they were wrong. As the first destroyer came within range, the Marines opened fire. Their shells hit dead on. One destroyer, the Hayate, exploded in a massive fireball and sank instantly. The Marines roared with joy. Then Marine pilot Captain Henry Elrod took off in his Wildcat fighter and attacked another ship, the Kisaragi. His bomb struck the deck, igniting the ammunition. The second destroyer also sank beneath the waves. It was a stunning victory. The Japanese fleet retreated in panic. Wake Island, that tiny dot in the Pacific, had just repelled the first Japanese invasion of World War II. News spread across America. Newspapers called it Wake's Great Stand. President Roosevelt praised the defenders. It was a rare moment of hope after the disaster at Pearl Harbor. But that hope was short-lived. The Japanese were humiliated, and they returned 2 weeks later with overwhelming force. On December 23rd before sunrise, the sky above Wake Island erupted again. This time, the Japanese came with 2 aircraft carriers, 6 cruisers and thousands of soldiers. The island's defenders, exhausted, hungry, and nearly out of ammunition, knew they couldn't win. But they were ready to die fighting. Bombs rained down. The beaches turned to fire. Marines fought side by side with civilian workers, every man holding a rifle. Captain Elrod, the same pilot who had sunk a destroyer, was shot down and killed while fighting on the ground. He would later be awarded the Medal of Honor for his bravery. The defenders fought fiercely, but by morning the enemy had broken through. The radio operator sent one final message. Enemy on island. Issue in doubt. That was the last anyone ever heard from Wake Island. By noon the battle was over. Half the defenders were dead or wounded. The survivors were taken prisoner, sent to labor camps across Asia. Many never returned home. Even in defeat, the courage of Wake Island's defenders inspired a nation. Newspapers printed the words, "Remember Wake Island," and Americans everywhere found strength in their story. The Japanese commander later said, "The Americans fought like demons," and indeed they did. Years later, the United States retook Wake Island. But the memory of those 12 days in December 1941 never faded. It became a symbol, proof that courage isn't about winning. It's about refusing to give up, even when the whole world is against you. So when you hear about the great battles of World War II, Pearl Harbor, Midway, Normandy, remember Wake Island too, the tiny island where a few brave souls stood against an empire and turned their final stand into eternal legend.
But by heart.